beautiful souls. This is Rochelle with the Healing Rose, and today I'm taking a look at the decks that I am going to be working with and studying through this month in my attempt to actually make my whole practice a little bit more intentional and to really get clear on what is sitting in my collection unused. Which ones do I absolutely love? Which ones did I love before, but they don't resonate now, and maybe I might pass them along. And just trying to, get really clear about what I have, why I have it in my collection, and, maybe make space to bring more things in before, I used to just be like a mad collector. And now I'm trying to just really focus on bringing in decks that I really want to work with the energy of those decks, right? So we have the Revelations Tarot. This is by Zach Wong. It came out, I think, 2012. Somewhere around then. I did get it when it was a new release in the box set, which is still available on Amazon from Llewellyn. So this deck is quite interesting, right? It says tarot cards are much like mirrors. They reflect back to us an image of reality, but not reality itself. If a mirror is dusty, we cannot see ourselves clearly. If it's old, it may be warped and reflect a distorted image. If we're struggling, what we see in the mirror may be very different from the way others see us. One of the challenges in any tarot reading is to examine the many possible shades of meaning for each card and arrive at an accurate and constructive interpretation. And so he was someone who really wanted to find an easier way to work with reversals, and so has designed this deck, which is, it is Llewellyn, so of course the cardstock is fabulous, flexible, it's a little bit slippery, it shuffles beautifully no matter which way you want to shuffle it. It's small, compact, and portable. I love a Llewellyn deck. Love, love, love the decks from Llewellyn. So really fascinating, and I love the color palette. It has an upright image and a reversed image for each card. So essentially it's like having, it's almost 156 illustrations, right? So if we look at the sun, there's our sun, happy, smiley. When we look at the reversed sun, here's what's going on. Right? So it gives us a very different picture depending on which way it is. And so this deck is very specifically designed for working with reversals in a very intentional way. The book is fabulous, and I love this artwork. I got it new, was like, oh, cool. Tried to do a few readings with it, and back when I got it, I was struggling a little bit with the way the symbolism is portrayed. It doesn't have quite the same layer of symbolism. So interpretation-wise, like some of the interpretations were a little like, I know what judgment is, and I know what judgment is upside down, but I kind of want to get a better sense of it with this deck, because every deck has its own kind of flavor and nuance. So because this was a deck I wanted to work with, I also was very much drawn this month to working with the Starcode Astro Oracle by Heather Roan Robbins. So this is a Hay House deck. And the color palette, the tonality of the colors used, it's like we only have so many colors in the spectrum, right? And it's all just based on like tone and shade, right? Tone and tint, basically. And the color palette between these two decks is so incredibly similar, right? Like the purple and the purple are like, they're spot on. And they were done, a decade apart, but still, there's something about the color palette, right? So even though we're in the same tone, it's a lighter shade. So when we look at the way these two decks seem to want to speak together, I found to be really, really fascinating, and absolutely, I mean, you can see when you look at them, they're going to be amazing together. So I'm really kind of excited to, you know, dive in and see what it's like to try, you know, study one, study the other. I've had this since I got it. I've read with it a few times. The readings are fabulous with it, but I've never really done, you know, kind of like a deep dive with it. And I would like to be really intentional in my practice. And so, you know, I want to really get to know each deck really well. So this is kind of like my main focus. Pairing. This is like my perfect pairing for the month. And I think they're going to work together beautifully. Right. So this came in a box set, and it came with one of these little, you know, these little bags with it, which is actually ripping on the side. So I need to get it a new thing to live in, but it's been fine because it's just, you know, sat in my collection like this in a bag so it didn't get dusty, and it's just been hanging out on the shelf. But now it's actually going to go into practice, which I'm very excited for. Okay, so this deck, Priestess of Light Oracle by Sandra Ann Taylor. This is my favorite oracle that she's done. I did enjoy her Energy Oracle. And then she had a new one that came out, and it just, something about it was just kind of like, just didn't resonate with me. And I thought, no. And I saw this one, and every time I looked at it, and you know, I'm not a cat person. I'm actually allergic to cats. So when I see, you know, it's almost like my nose itches to look at the box. And then I thought, that's, you know, maybe not really fair to the deck. Maybe there's something in here that's going to be amazing, right? And I watched a couple flip throughs, and I debated, and it sat on my list for probably like a year. It was on my wish list, and I kept looking at it and then going, nah, and back and forth. And then I got it, and I started doing some readings for myself with it the first day, and it read really, really well. And lately I've just really been feeling called to work with this one more. And it has a really kind of interesting energy to it when you start working with it. And something about this color palette is so soothing when I look at it. And something about it just kind of cries out to me that it's like the deck that I need to use this month. So I've been looking at it, and I've been really drawn to it, and I find my gaze has been going to it all week. Every time I look over at the shelf, this is the box that catches my eye. But I've been thinking about like, oh, okay, what am I going to look for? What am I going to work with in March, and what sort of, you know, energies are coming up? And my eye continuously has gone to this every day for the last week. So I went, okay, I wasn't even going to add it in. And then I looked, and I was just like, yeah, okay, this is going in the pile. So, you know, well, I'm not sure why. I love the backs. It didn't really seem to me like it had, you know, I'm kind of like, what's the energy feel like for this time of the year? And, you know, how is my energy feeling, and what feels like it sits with that? You know, I'm trying to work a lot more with the energies, as opposed to just, you know, the cards and the color. And it's like, oh, this has this in it, so that must be a spring deck. You know, so I'm trying to be super intentional with it. But I'm also feeling, you know, because this deck is one that you know what? I fell in love with the art style. I loved the indie one. I found out it was mass market, and I pre-ordered it. And then when I got the pre-order and it showed up, it's got these gray, muddy, gray-brown borders on them. I don't even know what color this is, but I know I don't like the borders. And so I love the artwork, and the more I look at the artwork, the more I love it. But then the more I see the borders, I don't like it. So originally in the indie one, it had kind of a, kind of like a sort of a teal sort of blue color for the borders, right? And if you put a color beside that, it's like, visually, this is wow. If it had been black borders, I feel like it would have made the visuals pop more. But because it's this brown, I'm just not this brown gray color. Not a fan. So I'm actually modifying this deck. But I kind of feel like maybe this deck actually, I sort of have a sense that it might actually work really nicely with the Priestess of Light. So this is on my table because I love it and I want to work with it. I find the size of it awkward, so I feel like when I cut it down, it might work so much better. Because I've done that with a couple of Hay House decks. I have done that with my Wisdom of the Oracle from Colette Baron Reid, and if you're familiar with her at all, you're familiar with her probably with this deck. It's her main teaching deck. And it used to be this size, right? And I have trimmed the borders and it's now this size. So it's considerably smaller when we look at it. And when I look at this and I go, okay, so if I take the borders off, it's going to end up pretty darn close to being this size. I just need to make sure I make, you know, that I have all the words in there. So the word is covered. And then that little bit of the top and get in on the edge. And I feel like it's going to be pretty close to this size when I'm done with it. And I really love this size with the heavier cardstock. It's so much easier to handle and shuffle. It feels really great and portable. So I'm very excited to do that with this deck. And because it's mass market, you know, I'm not super worried about damaging it. Like if it was an indie deck, I think I would never dream of cutting the borders off. But also I know what color the original borders were, which is what I loved about it. And I'd missed out on the indie deck. I heard about it a little bit late and was absolutely like, oh my God, so in love. And then, you know, when it arrived, I was like, what happened to the beautiful, lovely, gorgeous borders? They're just gone. And it was, yeah, so that was like kind of disappointing when it first arrived. But I feel like I can get around that with it being, you know, not as super expensive. I mean, I guess $39.99 Canadian. I know because I got it on a pre-order, I paid less than that. So I'm not super worried about it. If I screw it up and I need to replace it, I know that I can, right? So Hay House pretty much leaves your decks in rotation for like a million years if you make a deck with them. So I'm not super worried. And the last one, or I guess last two, right? So the Faerie Oracle, Brian Froud, just to address this right away. So this was on my January list as one of my winter decks. And because I spent way more time with the Heart of Faerie than I did with the actual Faerie, you know, the original Faerie Oracle, I actually want to spend more time with the Faerie Oracle. So it is staying in my working pile right now, so it can get that little bit of extra attention. And if you haven't seen a full flip through of this, I might actually get around to doing that and putting that up. But so that's still here. It's not something new. It's something we're just going to continue to work with. Usually by now, by March, it kind of like I stopped working with it, but this year I want to keep going. So the last one then is the Mystique of Magdalene by Cheryl Yambrook Rose. This is I want to say, it's Blue Angel. I was going to say the other one, but so Blue Angel comes with a really lovely book. Has these gorgeous, gorgeous backs. And I mean, this deck is it's so beautiful to work with. I have, I started at the beginning of Lent, I started doing a very intentional Mary Magdalene reading for myself every weekend. I have been loving the anchor spread that comes with this deck. So it looks at personal life, family influence, your career, your inner feelings, what you're missing, what you need to focus on. Like, it's a really well-rounded spread that I am absolutely loving. And I might actually do a little video. It's kind of a very interesting introspective personal practice, you know, using the different oracle decks to kind of like take me on a journey to get to the spread. So this deck actually is part of the last bit of the spread that I do with it. It's kind of like the last step in the process when I go on this kind of like intentional journey with the different oracles, looking at this, looking at that sort of, you know, energy to do with Mary Magdalene. I might do a video about it. I don't know. It's kind of a personal practice, but if there's interest, I will share that. Yeah, so that's the collection. I'm trying to be super intentional, so I'm not giving myself a huge crazy stack to work with. So I have the deck I want to modify in the hopes that it's going to make me want to work with it more. I have this, which is, you know, part of my ongoing spiritual practice through Lent. Our Faerie Oracle that we're just continuing to work with. The Priestess of Light Oracle, which, you know, I've worked with it before, and it just feels like, you know, it wants to work again. Every time I've looked over at my bookshelf for the last week, this, you know, this box has like really popped out at me. You know, I've kind of been busy and I'm sort of like, yeah, I'm not working with that one today. I'm doing readings. And so when I'm doing readings for other people, this isn't one of the decks that I generally use because I don't know it like the back of my hand, right? So if I'm going to read for somebody else, unless it has like an amazing question or keyword or phrase on it that is absolutely going to spark my intuition to just, you know, really like go hog wild with the deck. If I don't have the deck like memorized and I haven't worked with it a lot and I don't deeply understand the energies, I'm not going to use that for someone else's paid reading, because we should all be getting good value for our readings, right? And I don't want to take away from someone's reading in that sense. And then I'm really excited to dive deeper with this Astro Oracle. I've been so in love with it since I've received it, and I just have never kind of spent the time with it. So this month is definitely getting its focus. And of course, it's partnering with the Revelations Tarot. So it should be an interesting month. And we'll see at the end of March, which, if any of them actually want to kind of stay in practice. I always find that really interesting, right? You spend a month with something and then it's, you know, kind of like, oh, that was interesting working with it. I want to work with something different now. Or you start to work with it and then you totally, you know, there's a deep resonance that happens and it becomes part of your regular practice. And that's happened with a few decks. You know, that it's never my intention to get them. They were kind of like an add-on to an order or something. And then they became like this huge thing that I worked with continuously. And then other ones, it's like, I think I'm going to love it. And it shows up and I just kind of never get around to working with it. So I'm very excited to see what happens this month. Anyways, I would love to hear what everyone else is using and working with this month. Or, you know, really just anytime. If you don't see this until April or May, like, that's cool. I still would love to hear about, you know, what's your favorite deck to work with, or what new thing is coming into your worldview that you would absolutely love to take a deep dive with and look more at. Hope you've enjoyed watching this today. And I think I have flip throughs on almost all of these that I will link in the description. So if you want to take a closer look at any of these decks, it's not going to require a lot of searching to find something that goes and takes a look at it, right? In any case, have a wonderful week, and I hope that this month goes beautifully for you wherever you are at in your tarot or oracle journey. If you've enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up button. If you feel called to subscribe, I would love that as well. And quick PSA, I only book readings through my website, which is found in the description box down below, or in the About My channel. There's a link there. It's the only place I'm actually doing readings anymore, just for security, for people to feel like they're, you know, that they're actually getting a legitimate reading with a real person, as opposed to a lot of these weird things going around. If someone DMs you, it's not me. Unless you've messaged me and I'm messaging back, right? If someone reaches out, I will of course reach back, but I will never be the one to reach out and go like, hey, the universe energy just drew me to your profile and I thought you'd want a reading. That's not me. It's never going to be me. So just so we're all clear about that, right? As always, have an amazing week. Take care.